الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولي الأولين والآخرين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وخليله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Respected brothers and sisters, before beginning this very, very important reminder, I'd like to mention exactly what my respected brother mentioned only a minute ago, where he said, why are people sitting back? And brother, tafadhal, come forward inshallah. Tafadhal. And the reason why I mention this is, firstly, when it comes to seeking knowledge, there are etiquettes. And from the etiquettes of seeking knowledge is that people should be close to each other and they should not be far away. And this is from the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, because Jibreel alayhi salam, in the famous hadith of Umar radiallahu anh, as you know, he came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Umar radiallahu anh, who said, إِذْ طَلَعَ عَلَيْنَا رَجُلٌ شَدِيدُ بِيَاضِ الثِّيَابِ وَشَدِيدُ سُوَادِ الشَّعْرِ. That we were sitting with the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam when all of a sudden a man appeared in front of us, and he was wearing very, very white clothes, and his hair was very black, meaning he was young in age. He said, لا يرى عليه أثر السفر ولا يعرفه منا أحد. That no effects of the journey could be seen upon him, and neither did anybody amongst us know him. فجاء إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So he came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. حتى أسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه. And he sat so close to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that his knees were touching the knees of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in this scenario, Jibreel alayhi salam came in the form of a student, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the form of a teacher or a sheikh. And this is why Jibreel then said, Ya Muhammad akhbirni anil Islam. O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, teach me, because you're the teacher here, teach me about Islam. أخبرني عن الإيمان أخبرني عن الإحسان أخبرني عن الساعة أخبرني عن أماراتها. He asked Jibreel alayhi salam these questions. And Luqman al-Hakim, he said to his son, he said, يا بني زاحم العلماء بركبتيك. He said, oh my son, be close to the ulama with your knees. And this of course does not mean that here in this sitting there is a relationship of a scholar and students. We are all brothers inshallah. But the point is, when it comes to talab al-ilm, there are adab, there are etiquettes, and we have to maintain these etiquettes. And secondly, when you have a guest who comes from outside, then when the guest sees people close to him, he feels loved and appreciated. And when the guest sees people sitting far away, thinks maybe I've done something wrong, maybe they don't like me. So also from adab of diyafa, from the etiquettes of hosting the guest. And the Prophet ﷺ said, as all of you know, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه. Whoever has iman in Allah and the final day, let him honor his guest. So firstly, Jazakallah khair, brother, for your reminder to the brothers. Wa Jazakumullah khair. With regards to today's important reminder, as has been mentioned, regarding the tongue and the blessings of the tongue and the dangers of the tongue and some of the sins of the tongue. Ikhwani fillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has honored us Bani Adam, and He has made us Bani Adam as humans better and more virtuous than all the other types of created beings. And there are various ways in which Allah subhanahu has honored Bani Adam over the rest of creation. And one of the ways in which Allah subhanahu has made us honored over the rest of creation is that He gave us al-aql. He gave us intellect. And He gave us al-aql tam. He gave us complete intellect. Whereas animals and other beings, they do have some aql. However, that aql, it is restricted. And this is why the sheep does what it does every single day. It never tries anything new. And a cow does what it does every single day. It does not try anything new. And like this, the rest of the animals. Whereas insan is not like that. And also one of the ways in which Allah subhanahu has honored Bani Adam, human beings, over other created beings is ni'matul bayan. Ni'matul aql wa ni'matul bayan. The blessing of this aql which is up here, and then the blessing of being able to express ourselves. Meaning express ourselves with our tongues. And this tongue which Allah subhanahu has blessed us with, this allows us to speak, it allows us to communicate, it allows us to convey our emotions which are here and in our heart, and to translate our thoughts into words, and then communicate it with those who are around us. And this is why al-lisan huwa tarjuman al-qalb. They say the tongue is the translator of the heart, because the heart feels and thinks, and the tongue translates and communicates these feelings, thoughts and emotions to those who are around us. So lisan, the tongue, ni'mah, from the greatest blessings which Allah subhanahu has given us. And this is why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu reminds us of this blessing which He has given us. In numerous ayat in the Quran, Allah subhanahu reminds us that think about this blessing which we have given you. Allah subhanahu said, Alam naj'al lakum aynayn. Did we not give you and make for you two eyes? Walisana. And do we not create for you the tongue? Washafatayn. And do we not create for you these two lips? So when Allah subhanahu said, Alam naj'al lahu aynayn walisanan washafatayn, do we not make for him, for the human, two eyes and the tongue and the lips? This question, the intention behind the question is not istifham. It's not that it's a question. Rather, the point or the shahid behind this question is that of course we have provided you with two eyes. You know that. And we have provided for you a tongue. You know that. And lips. And therefore show shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu said, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaqa al-Insan, Allamahu al-Bayan. He said, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. Allama al-Quran, He taught the Quran. Khalaqa al-Insan, He created humans, man. Then, Allamahu al-Bayan. And He taught him al-Bayan. Al-Bayan, the ability to communicate and convey and clarify. And notice how our Lord Subhanahu began the surah with mentioning His beautiful name Ar-Rahman, which contains the attribute of Ar-Rahmah, mercy. And then He mentioned certain points which shows us that they are mercy from Allah Subhanahu. So Allama al-Quran, He taught the Quran, this is from His Rahmah. Khalaq al-Insan, from His Rahmah. Allamahu al-Bayan, also from His Rahmah. And subhanallah, the tongue, al-lisan, if a person truly thought about and contemplated his tongue, if you thought about it, you would see how great and amazing of a creation the tongue is. So this tongue is from the smallest limbs in the body. And what is the tongue? It's just flesh. And it's a flesh which is maybe the size of my hand in length or even less. And it's something which is weak. And yet despite all of this and how small and feeble it seems, however it can move and move and move. And in bigger muscles, your thighs and your biceps and your arms, short amount of movement and they become tired. The tongue, small, and all they can keep moving, it never becomes tired. And quicker than every other muscle in the body. And it does not become tired like the other limbs and muscles become tired. And along with it being quick in its movements and its words being very light, yani easy to say, yet despite this, it's from the most dangerous muscles or limbs in a body. And if you want to understand and appreciate how important and how dangerous just the tongue can be, then what is the difference between a person accepting Islam and remaining upon kufr? Words, La ilaha illallah. Just a few words, La ilaha illallah, and a person can leave kufr and come into Islam. Or may Allah protect us, leave Islam and go into kufr. How much blood has been shed due to a few words which were said? How many relationships have been destroyed because of a word which was said? How many marriages have ended up into divorce because of words which were said? How much honor has been violated due to mere words? How many families, relations, ties of kinship have been broken for decades and decades? Yani two brothers who when they were young, they loved with each other, they played with each other, they slept in the same bed, they used to eat from the same plate. For years, 10, 15, 20 years, and they were with each other all the time. Hands around each other, hugging each other, laughing with each other. And then there was a moment of 10 seconds where one person said something to the other person. And then for the next 10 years, they have not spoken to each other. And then their children have not spoken to each other. Their nieces and nephews have not spoken to each other, to their uncles. Grandchildren have not spoken to their grandparents. And all of this is not something which is hypothetical. Yani all of you know, in your families, in your communities, you know amongst your friends. You know of brothers who are not speaking to each other. You know of sisters, of aunties, of uncles, of families who are not speaking to each other. And it lasts for decades and decades. Why? 10 seconds. A few words that somebody said to the other person. And then it grew from this. May Allah protect us. Even zina, adultery. A person does not fall into adultery from the first go. What does it start with? Start with a few words. Few words and a few words and a few words. And then, na'udhu billah, ends up in one of the worst, most severe, despicable crimes and sins in al-Islam. The difference between marriage and divorce, what is it? Just words. Marriage, qubul, ijab. Divorce, talaq, firaq. Just words. And a person is married or divorced. Your words can build a person's character. Your words can give confidence to a child. And your words can destroy a person's character. Your words can destroy a child's future. Undermine a child's future. All of it, what is it? Just this tongue moving up and down without becoming tired. What's the difference between somebody, we give condolences by a single word, fulan marhum, shows that that person's died. Another person, Mubarak, is coming into the world, a newborn baby. What's the difference? Just words. Words of the tongue. And of course, greater than all of this is that this tongue can earn you the love and the pleasure and the rida of Allah subhanahu, and this same tongue can earn you the wrath and the anger and the punishment of our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, if the tongue is used and utilized in that which pleases Allah and benefits those who are around us, then this tongue is one of the greatest blessings of Allah upon us. And one of the easiest ways to enter into Jannah and attain great reward and mercy from Allah. And if this same tongue is utilized to displease Allah, and to harm those who are around us, then it is a sorrow upon a person and a burden upon a person. And the tongue is so dangerous because if you were to hit somebody, let's say if you were to hit somebody with your fist, you know what you've done. And that person knows what you've done. And those who are around you, all of them know that which you have done. But when you say a statement against somebody, you belittle that statement. You don't realize the effect of that statement. If you break a person's bone or give a person a bruise, give it a few days, give it a week, give it 2 weeks, and it will cure. That bruise will be removed, that bone will be cured, it'll strengthen, the person can then go back doing what he was doing. Maybe for a short while he needs to wear a cast or a bandage, then after that it goes back to normal. The words which a person says against another person, wallahi, it can have an effect with that person for the rest of his life. Psychologically, emotionally, it affects his future relationships. A word was said to a boy when he was young, how he treats his wife is because of some damage that maybe that word did. This is how dangerous statements and the tongue is. And this is why the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَتَكَلَّمُ بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّن رِضْوَانِ اللَّهِ لَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا وَيَرْفَعُهُ اللَّهُ بِهِ دَرَجَاتٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. That a person says a single word, but this single word is something which pleases Allah. That person said that word, he paid no attention to what he was saying. And yet because of this word, Allah raises his ranks in Jannah. And there are many people who have accepted Islam, or they've started practicing Islam, or they've returned back to Islam, or they've grown up to be ulama, because of somebody, maybe even a stranger passing by, and he just said to him, look, remember you have to pray, and then he carries on going. And then he never thinks about that word which he said, maybe never meets that person again. And that person, because of that word from that stranger, maybe becomes from the great ulama. And then the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, وَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَتَكَلَّمُ بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّن سَخَطِ اللَّهِ لَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا. That perhaps a person says a statement which earns the anger of Allah and he pays no attention to it. يَهْوِي بِهَا فِي جَهَنَّمْ. And yet he is dragged to Jahannam because of this word which he said, which he paid no attention to. So this shows us these words, good or bad. Sometimes we belittle them, we pay no attention to them, but the end result is either يَرْفَعَهُ اللَّهُ بِهَا دَرَجَاتٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ or يَهْوِي بِهَا إِلَى جَهَنَّمْ. And this is why in the Quran, in the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in the statement of the Sahaba and the Salaf and the Athar, we find such a great attention is paid to the tongue and rectifying the tongue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. Only say words of goodness towards the people. الناس, all people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, tell my people, يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Only say that which is good. Why? إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنْزَغُ بَيْنَهُمْ. Because shaitan causes problems between you. How? Because of what you say. Shaitan utilizes your words in order to cause problems between each other. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us how there are angels always recording what a person says. He said, Subhana ma yalfidhu min qawlin illa ladayhi raqibun atid. That a person does not verbalize a statement, verbalize a thought, except that there are those who are being trusted with observing and recording. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Yawma tubla sarair. That on that day, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, all those secrets will be laid bare. All those statements which you said, which only you heard and that person heard, nobody else heard. Everything laid bare on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us how on Yawm al-Qiyamah the earth will speak, and the tongue itself will speak, and the hands will speak, and the feet will speak, and all of them will bear witness to what people did and said. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَوْمَ تَشْهَدُ عَلَيْهِمْ أَلْسِنَتُهُم. On that day, their tongues will be witnesses against them. You said good, the tongue will bear witness. You said bad, the tongue will bear witness. Allah said regarding the earth, يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ عَنْ أَخْبَارِهَا. In Surah Zalzala, on that day, the earth, it will give its information. The human will say, what is wrong with the earth? Why is it speaking, giving its information? بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى لَهَا. Because your Lord has ordered and inspired the earth to speak. So the earth, in the places, the lands where we walk and talk, it will say on Yawm al-Qiyamah, oh my Lord, on this spot, Fulan ibn Fulan, he did this good deed. He spoke the truth. He advised a person. He recited the Quran. He made dhikr. And the earth will say, oh my Lord, on this day, on this place, this person said and did and used to backbite and insulted and bullied and mocked and swore and insulted. All of this the earth will speak of. And there are many other ayat and ahadith like this. The point is that this lisan, this tongue, from the smallest, most belittled, most feeble limbs and muscles, flesh of the body, yet has the greatest effect and the most danger, and can carry on going all day long without becoming tired. And this tongue, ikhwatul iman, it gets used to whatever you cultivate it upon. So if you cultivate your tongue upon goodness, it becomes used to speaking with goodness. If you cultivate your tongue upon evil or swearing, it becomes used to evil and swearing. It all goes back to you. So if you keep the reins tight, the tongue will be controlled. If you loosen the reins of the tongue, it will speak and speak. And this is why in the first instance, you have to stay away from swearing. In the first instance, never allow your tongue to become used to swearing, because the first swear is the most difficult. Then it only becomes easier and easier, na'udhu billah. And on the other side, keep your tongues moist with the dhikr of Allah. And initially, it may be something which is more difficult, but then it becomes easier and easier. And this is why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us not only to make dhikr, but to make dhikr in abundance. He said, let's take the buttons off them. He said, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu dhkurullaha dhikran kathira. O people of Iman, make dhikr of Allah, but make dhikr of Allah in abundance. Why make dhikr of Allah in abundance? Because the tongue will not stop. The tongue has to move and it does not become tired. So either you utilize the tongue with making an abundance of the dhikr of Allah, or the tongue will speak with other matters. So the one who keeps his tongue moist with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah make us from those people, it will not swear, it will not backbite, it will not speak with fahish and immorality. But the one who does not speak with dhikr and make a dhikr, his tongue will say something, and then it will become that which is not good. So the tongue is all about what you get the tongue used to speaking about, how much you control it. And the ulama, the hukama, the wise men, the wise people, they say, Al-lisan إذا سكت أنت مالكه. That regarding the tongue, as long as you remain silent, you are in control of the tongue. You are the owner of the tongue. The minute that the tongue speaks and the word comes out, now it is the owner. And it is in charge. And you are no longer in charge of your tongue. So this shows the importance of controlling and cultivating the tongue. Making moist with the remembrance of Allah. So it is not used to insulting and swearing. And then, Ikhwani Fillah, there are certain statements and certain words that are the most dangerous words. Some of them are clear kufr, and some of them are dhulm and tughyan, oppression, and some of them are sins, and all of them are severe. From the most dangerous statements and words that a person can say, and this is perhaps nothing more dangerous than this, al-istihza'u billahi wa rasulihi wa dini, is joking and mocking Allah or His religion, His sharia, His rewards, His punishments, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is clear kufr. And there's no excuse for a person. A single instance of mocking Allah, mocking the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, making a joke about Islam, making a joke about halal or haram, and that person's left the fold of al-Islam. Because Allah subhanahu said regarding the munafiqun, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ إِنَّمَا كُنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ, that if you ask them, they will say, we were only joking. It was just entertainment. We didn't mean anything behind it. Al-khawd wal-la'ab, just joking, using up free times. Light statements, bit of amusement and entertainment. Allah subhanahu said, قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ وَرَسُولِهِ كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. Say to them, was it regarding Allah and His ayat and His messenger that you were joking? Yani there was nothing else for you to talk about? There was nothing else for you to joke about? You couldn't mock your own self? You had to mock Allah and His messenger or the religion? You couldn't joke about your house or your wife or your children, or mock your mother or mock your father? There's nobody else left. Not that it's allowed, of course, to mock your parents or your children, but I'm saying there was nothing else left for a person to mock. There's only Allah and His messenger and the religion left to mock. Then what was the result? لا تعتذروا. Do not make any excuses. قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم. You have disbelieved after your iman. So the ulama mention من نواقض الإسلام, from those things which invalidate a person's Islam, is al-istihza bid-din, is making a joke of al-Islam. Even if a person says, but I wasn't meaning anything, I wasn't being serious, it was just a joke. But when it comes to Islam and speaking about Islam, any aspect of Islam, you mock the beard, and the beard as a legislation of Islam. You mock the hijab as a legislation of Islam. You mock the miswak as a legislation of Islam. That is a part of Islam. Or Jannah, or Hurul Ain, or anything like this. لا تعتذروا قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم. Do not make any excuses. You have left the religion of Islam. You have fallen to kufr after your iman. And what is it? Words. Just a movement of the tongue. So this is the most dangerous sin of the tongue. Then after this, also dangerous and yet very prevalent amongst the shabab, is al-qasam bi ghayrillah wal-half bi ghayrillah. Is a person taking a qasam by other than Allah. Swearing by other than Allah. Taking an oath by other than Allah. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Man halafa bi ghayrillahi faqad ashraka aw kafar." That the one who takes an oath, a qasam, or swears by other than Allah has fallen into shirk or kufr. It is only allowed for a Muslim to swear by Allah or by one of His names or one of His attributes. And how many people nowadays do we find them? I swear by my mother, I swear by my father. I swear by the Kaaba, shirk. I swear by the Kaaba. I swear by the Prophet, shirk, kufr. I swear on my life. I swear by my honor. I swear by my mother's grave, Fulan's grave, Fulan wali. All of this, man halafa bi ghayri Allahi faqad ashraka aw kafar. Rather, a person has to say, if he's going to take a qasam, otherwise he should not take a qasam. But if a person is going to take a qasam, wallahi, aqsimu billahi, aqsimu bil rahman, or wa rabbil Kaaba, I swear by the Lord of the Kaaba, not the Kaaba itself. I swear by the one who sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, not the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam himself. I swear by the one who created my mother. I swear by the one who honored my mother, because you're swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not swearing by your mother or your father or anything else which has been created. Also from the dangerous sins of the tongue which are very prevalent is al-qawl ala Allahi bi ghayri ilm, is to speak about Allah, speak about the religion without knowledge. This is also from the most major sins. In fact, Allah subhanahu mentioned speaking without knowledge as being more severe than even shirk. He said, after mentioning those sins, وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and you say regarding Allah that which you do not know. And Allah subhanahu said that from the plots of ash-shaytan, إِنَّمَا يَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالسُّوءِ وَالْفَحْشَاءِ وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That from his plots are that he entices you to speak with evil, and he entices you to speak with fahisha, وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and that you speak regarding Allah of that which you have no knowledge of. And this includes giving fatawa, giving rules, saying this is halal, this is haram, this is wajib, and you don't have knowledge of what you're speaking about. From the severe sins of the tongue which is prevalent amongst the youth is swearing and insulting and fahisha. And the meaning of fahisha, ikhwani fillah, is like they say, dirty speech, speech which is immoral, speech which is lowly, speech which contains, and I have to be careful how I say because of the children who are with us, innuendos about women and talking about women and the opposite gender and like this. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he negated iman from a person whose tongue is like this. He said, لَيْسَ الْمُؤْمِنُ بِالطَّعَانِ وَلَا اللَّعَانِ وَلَا الْبَذِيءِ وَلَا الْفَاحِشِ. That the one who makes ta'an, a lot of swearing and insulting, and the one who makes la'an, a lot of cursing, and the one who is badhi, and his tongue is dirty, and the one who is fahish, immoral in his speech, laysa bil mu'min. A believer is not like this. A person of iman is not like this. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, sabbul muslimi fusuq wa qitalu kufr. That insulting another Muslim is fisq, clear, open evil, and disobedience to Allah, corruption. Wa qitaluhu kufr, and fighting him is kufr. And also from the dangerous statements of the tongue, which is also very prevalent, is racist words. When a person discriminates against another person based on their race only, and using terms and words which that person does not like, using the N word or referring to Pakistanis with the P word, and like this, in which it's known that this is clearly a racist term. As for saying that Ahmed the black brother, or Abdullah the white brother, this is not considered to be racist. Why? Because you're merely describing the brother which differentiates him from the others, like nationality or ethnicity, or if you said Fulan the tall brother, Fulan the short brother, and you do not intend behind this belittling that person, you're merely intended just to distinguish him regarding the one you are talking about. So words which have a clear racist connotation or context, also severe sins. And the first sin which was ever committed was the sin of arrogance and racism. And it was the sin of Iblis alayhi la'natullah. Because when Allah subhanahu said to him that prostrate in front of the one who I've created with my own two hands, meaning Adam alayhi salam, what was his reply? قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْ. He said, me, I am better than him. خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. Because you created me from fire and you created him from clay. I am better in my creation than him. This was the first ever sin which was done. And what was it? Words, only words. قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْ. He said, I am better than him. And now this same Iblis, alayhi la'natullah ila yawm al-qiyamah, until the day of resurrection. And he's a shaitan ar-rajim. We say, A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. The meaning of ar-rajim, al-matrud min rahmatillahi ila yawm al-qiyamah. The one who is far away from the mercy of Allah until yawm al-qiyamah. Based upon what? Which sin? Which action? Just a word. قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْ. A word of arrogance and a word of racism. And also from the dangerous severe sins is mocking or insulting a person's lineage or any family background or lineage. So much so that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he called this kufr. He called it kufr, disbelief. He said, Thintani finnasi huma bihima kufr. That there are two traits amongst people that are kufr. He said, at-ta'nu fi nasab wa niyahatu ala al-mayyit. Insulting people's lineage, people's family, people's bloodline, and an-niyaha, wailing over disease, complaining about the decree of Allah. Why did Allah take Fulan from me? He was too young, he shouldn't have been taken. All of this the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam called kufr. And then ikhwani fillah, there are other words I want to point out that sometimes maybe we say them but we don't understand what we are saying, but they are dangerous. Sometimes, and even amongst the Muslims, subhanallah, they'll say Fulan is a munafiq, Fulan is Yahudi, and what they intend by this is he's stingy or bakhil, he's stingy, miserly. Fulan Yahudi. It's not allowed to say these words. Also, for example, common, to hell with him, to hell with it. This is a dua which a person is making regarding Jahannam. Maybe the person not realize it, but it is dangerous. Even more severe than this, and this is shirk, if a person says, oh Jesus. And this is kufr, because this is dua li ghayrillah. This is calling upon other than Allah. You find sometimes Muslims, they say, cross your fingers, touch wood. This is superstitions. This is kufr. Or mentioning the horoscope, kufr. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, Man ata kahinan, whoever approaches a fortune teller, lam tuqbal lahu salatan 40 yawman. His salah is not accepted for 40 days. That is a person who merely approaches a fortune teller, and even as a joke, and he was never going to believe him, and he did not believe him. The mere action of approaching the fortune teller, and a person's salah can be invalid for 40 days. And yet he still has to pray all those salawat. وَمَنْ أَتَى كَاهِنًا وَصَدَّقَهُ. And whoever goes to a fortune teller and believes in him in that which he has said, فَقَدْ كَفَرَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. Then that person has disbelieved in that which was sent and revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the ulama, they include in this reading horoscopes. Sisters, especially sisters, young sisters, who have been afflicted with these magazines and celebrity news and gossip, and amongst that is the horoscopes, then it can be kufr, and at the least it is like approaching a fortune teller and your star is not accepted for 40 days. Now these sins which I mentioned, they are they are severe because of the effect upon the person himself. Kufr, major kufr, minor kufr, major sins, minor sins, the point is they are dangerous upon a person. Then there are other sins which are also severe because of their harm upon other people, that you are violating the rights of other people. And from those sins is backbiting, slander, spreading rumors, hearsay, it was said, and she was said, and this was done, and buhtan, and carrying tales between people to affect their relationships. This is called an-namima. An-namam is a person, he goes to this person and he said, do you know, I heard Fulan saying this about you? And then he goes to that person, you'll never know how he replied, what he said about you. This is an-namam, an-namima. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he passed by two graves and he said, إِنَّهُمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ لِكَبِيرٍ. That these two, they are being punished right now in the grave. And they are not being punished for anything which is big. What he meant by this is that they are being punished for something severe, but they thought it was not severe. They thought it was something which was small. He said, أَمَّا أَحَدُهُمَا. As for the first of them, he never used to protect his clothing from droplets of urine. Yani, this is not somebody who has any type of illness or condition, but was very careless with regards to istinja and urinating, akramakumullah. And the second one, كَانَ يَمْشِي بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِالنَّمِيمَةِ. He used to go between the people, carrying tales against each other to destroy their relationships. Severe punishment in the grave. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بِغَيْرِ مَا اكْتَسَبُوا. Those people who harm and irritate the believing men and the believing women, of no fault of theirs. He said subhanahu, فَقَدْ احْتَمَلُوا بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. Then they are carrying the burden of a clear slander and a clear sin. And in this blessed ayah, Allah subhanahu, He said, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Those people who irritate and harm the believers. Now when we say mu'minun, this includes every type of believer. Men and women, all of them we say mu'minun. But then Allah subhanahu said, وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, including the female believers. So why did Allah subhanahu mention al-mu'minat when the mu'minat are included in the mu'minin? Because of how even more severe and even more dangerous it is to speak about a Muslim woman, a believing woman. Because in Islam, in our religion, in our culture, the honor of a woman is much greater than the honor of a man. And the honor of a woman is more delicate than the honor of a man. And this is why Allah subhanahu mentions specifically al-mu'minat, even though al-mu'minat is mentioned in al-mu'minin. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, he said, "Ijtanibu sab'al mubiqat." Avoid the 7 mubiqat, a muhlikat. Avoid the 7 major destructive sins. And amongst them, he said, "Ramyul mu'minat al-muhsinat," is to falsely accuse believing women of a wrongdoing, and they are free from that action. So even ikhwani fillah, and this is very prevalent and amongst the kuffar, and I can't give examples of the words which they use when it comes to describing women, because we're in this blessed sacred place, the masjid. But you know how they describe the women in their songs and their rap and their movies and places and things like this. All of this comes under these severe ahadith. And amongst them, of course, is backbiting. And there are two doubts that people mention regarding backbiting. First of them, they say, but what I'm saying about him is the truth. I'm not saying anything false about him. What I'm saying about him is the truth. This is because we have not understood what the meaning of backbiting is. Backbiting, as the Messenger ﷺ said, ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ, is mentioning anything regarding your brother which he does not like. Anything regarding your sister which he does not like. Whether it's about his size, his appearance, his colour, his house, a smell, anything which that person does not like, or nickname that person does not like, all of this comes backbiting if it is behind their back. If you mention a lie regarding that person, then this is al-kadhib wal-buhtan wal-namima. This is slander. But al-ghiba, backbiting, it is mentioning something which is correct in that person, but that person does not like you mentioning it. This is what is not allowed, from the major sins. And secondly, but I'll say it in front of the person as well. Okay, but right now you're saying it behind that person's back. It is a ghiba. Doesn't matter whether you say it in front of the person or not. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu gave the example of backbiting with the most disgusting and despicable example, repulsive example which can be given. He said in Surah Al-Hujurat, وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا, and do not make ghiba, backbiting of each other. Why? أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ, that would any of you like to eat the flesh of his brother after he has died? Eating the flesh of a diseased body or deceased body. This is how Allah subhanahu linked backbiting. And what is the point of resemblance between backbiting and between consuming the flesh of your deceased brother? That when a person backbites another person, the one against whom it was said, he cannot defend himself. Why? Because he's not there. Like a person who does something to the body of deceased and the deceased cannot do anything. Why? Because he has no life in him. This is the resemblance between both of them. And the Messenger ﷺ, and I'm sure the hadith you know, hadith of Abu Hurairah, he said, أَتَدْرُونَ مَنِ الْمُفْلِسِ, do you know who the bankrupt person is? قالوا يا رسول الله, Messenger of Allah, المفلس فينا من لا درهم له ولا دينارا, that the bankrupt person amongst us is the one who has no money. He's got no gold and silver left. He's lost it all. He's now bankrupt. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إن المفلس من أمتي من يأتي يوم القيامة, that the true muflis, the true bankrupt person, is a person from my ummah, a Muslim, person of tawheed, a person who prayed salah, gave sadaqah, performed hajj, gave in charity, fasted Ramadan, made dhikr, comes on Yawm al-Qiyamah, وَيَأْتِي بِصَلَاةٍ وَصِيَامٍ وَزَكَاةٍ, and he comes with a record full of salah, qiyam al-layl, tarawih, zakah, sadaqah, with fasting, all sorts of good deeds. But قَدْ شَتَمَ هَذَا, once he insulted this person, وَقَذَفَ هَذَا, and sometimes he accused that person, وَأَكَلَ مَالَ هَذَا, and sometimes he would take the wealth of that person and violate that person and oppress that person. فَيُعْطَى هَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ, and then his good deeds he gives it to that person. Then more good deeds are taken for that person. And that one who he was backbiting, good deeds go to that person. That person who used to insult, good deeds go to that person. That person who used to belittle, good deeds go to that person. Until there are no more good deeds left upon that person. Bankrupt. And then what did the Prophet ﷺ say? That once his good deeds have finished, فَيُؤْخَذْ مِنْ خَطَايَاهُمْ, and then their sins are taken and they are placed on his record. ثُمَّ يُطْرَحْ فِي النَّارِ, and then that person is thrown into the fire. Is there a greater bankrupt person than this one? And with regards to backbiting, there's a point in my mind, I've forgotten what the point was. Ala kulli hal, a person's tongue, it demonstrates a person's heart, what's in a person's heart. So if you find a person whose tongue is moist with the dhikr of Allah, then that demonstrates to us a heart of goodness, and only Allah knows the secrets. And if you find a person whose words are only khabith, impure, dirty words, then know that his heart is also khubuth. It also contains impurity and evil. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, لا يستقيم إيمان عبد حتى يستقيم قلبه. That the iman of a person will never be upright until his heart is upright. ولا يستقيم قلب رجل حتى يستقيم لسانه. And the heart of a person will never be upright until the tongue of a person is upright. So Ikhwani fillah, I remind myself firstly, for anybody else and all of you, with regards to the tongue, and the dangers of the tongue, the sins of the tongue. Backbiting is more dangerous, especially from the people of goodness, people of the masajid. Why? Because sometimes we backbite in the name of Islam. This is the other problem. So we might talk about the mistake of a person, and it was a mistake, he did wrong, but then we begin to transgress the limits. We may speak about an innovator, and he is an innovator, but then we begin to transgress the limits. We might inform somebody of something that another person did and it was right, but we begin to transgress the limits. The problem is that we're doing it in the name of Islam. We're thinking we're doing something which is good. And this is why Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he wrote a great monumental book called Talbis Iblis, the deception of Iblis. And he mentioned Talbis al-Iblis ala al-ulama wal-muhaddithin, the deception of Iblis upon the scholars and the scholars of hadith. And he mentioned amongst this deception of shaitan, ghiba. Because the asl is that the innovator can be criticized and refuted and should be exposed and his doubts are clarified, but we can never go to dhulm. We can never transgress their limits, and very easily are those limits transgressed. So ikhwani fillah, we have to control our tongues and cultivate our tongues upon goodness, upon dhikr, and being constant and consistent upon dhikr. And ask Allah subhanahu for hidayah wa tawfiq. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-huda wa tuqa wa al-afafa wa al-ghina. Allahumma ati nufusana taqwaha wa zakkiha anta khairu man zakkaha anta waliyuha wa mawlaha. اللهم اغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما أسررنا وما أعلنا وما أنت أعلم به منا أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر لا إله إلا أنت وصلى الله على نبينا وسلم وبالله التوفيق.